Hello, Tech fans, and welcome into episode 119 of the Tech Sideline Podcast, originating from TSL's high-tech studios in the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center. Whether you're watching live on Facebook, watching archived on YouTube, listening on SoundCloud or Apple Podcasts, however you consume the TSL Podcast, we're so glad that you could join us as we record on Wednesday morning, February 19th. We're thrilled because today's podcast is really all about you, our live viewers. We want you to drop questions on Facebook Live. We're going to spend the majority of today's show taking questions from you that Will and Chris will answer. But we will spend a little bit of time previewing tonight's men's basketball game. Virginia Tech hosts Miami at 9 o'clock inside of Cassell Coliseum. And we'll spend a little bit of time talking about the future of Cassell Coliseum and a tweet that Virginia Tech Athletic Director Whit Babcock put out over the weekend about seats at Cassell Coliseum. Again, we've got the best crew here today with you. As always, we've got the best producer in the land, Malcolm Stewart, behind the scenes. He's taking your Facebook Live questions on the podcast set. Our managing editor, Chris Coleman, our founder and general manager, Will Stewart, and I'm your podcast host, Evan Hughes. Again, thanks so much for being with us, episode 119. A reminder that this week and every week, the Fisher Law Firm is a proud sponsor of the Tech Sideline Podcast. They're Virginia's trusted DUI and traffic defense firm dedicated to defending individuals charged with traffic-related offenses. From their office in Blacksburg, they are able to serve the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. Whether you are charged with driving under the influence or speeding, the Fisher Law Firm realizes that each case is important to the client. To date, the firm has defended more than 30,000 people charged with moving violations. For free consultation, call anytime, day or evening, toll-free at 1-800-680-7031. Again, that's 1-800-680-7031. Or you can email them at info@fisherlegal.com. With that, good morning.
Since we have a little looser format today, pull up my Twitter feed and let's do the song lyrics.
Do you have a song lyric? Okay,
It's been a while. I've had it up there a long time, actually.
While we're doing that, Chris Coleman, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing well. I just looked at a Brandon Patterson article they sent, and it's 3,700 words. And I'm like, oh, man, I got to edit that bear today.
Brandon Patterson.
But it's going to be pretty good. It's about the passing game.
Will, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm just sitting there grinning because, you know, we pay Brandon the same amount per article. So if he wants to crank out 3,700 words, go for it. You know, we don't pay him by the word count.
So I actually was on your Twitter bio a couple of days ago, and I thought this was just a really powerful quote that you had in here. I didn't realize it was a part of a song.
So once we identify the song, we will get Chris to perform it.
Oh, I can't wait.
Not so much.
Today's the perfect day to start clipping pieces of the podcast on social media, and the first one is of Chris Coleman singing.
Chris performing this song.
So,
the quote. You going to do the quote first? All right, go for it.
The mind is a powerful place, and what you feed it can affect you in a powerful way.
Yes, those are actually lyrics.
Don't know.
I'm sure Buzz Williams would love that.
I was about to say, that felt like a hashtag get better
hashtag
quote.
Get Better
You could
Team
have
Coach
added that
Buzz.
to the end. I would have thought that was just a powerful quote you had in your bio there, Will.
So again, try to identify it without Googling. We did discuss this on one of the boards probably a month or two ago. So anyway, we'll circle back around to that later. Let's
say it one more time for those watching live. We'll get to it.
You got to say it faster, though.
The mind is a powerful place, and what you feed it can affect you in a powerful way. All right, so we'll get to that to the end of the podcast.
Heavy, man.
Real quick, because we've got a lot going on right now, techsideline.com. It's a great time to become a part of the family. $84.99 is the annual price, $8.49 the monthly price, $29.99 the student price. Of course, the TSL subscriber board, one of my favorite parts, being a part of the TSL family. Great content right now. Chris, anything you want to highlight that's on the website right now?
Oh, gosh.
Well, he just did. He said Brandon Patterson's coming.
Yeah, you're writing an article today, right? Or you?
I was going to save that from, yes.
Yeah, so lots of stuff. That's actually perfect because it gives me a break. Because we have a 9 o'clock game tonight, so I'm not going to stay here all day.
Yeah.
You got a scouting report on Alec Bryant.
I did, and I did one the day before on Jordan Brunson.
Yeah, so it's scouting report season. Chris does individual scouting reports on all the recruits after they sign.
And it's not going to take me as long this year because it's not a very big class. I'm probably 25% done already, and I think I've only done maybe 5 of them.
Yep,
4 of them.
Less than that.
Will, you've got a big article coming out today that I understand you were up till 2:30 in the morning.
I was. We teased it the other day. It's titled Unhinged, and it is a look behind the scenes at what happens when Hokie fans come unglued and take it out on the TSL message boards. So last night I sat down to start it. I sat down like, I don't know, 10 o'clock to start it, and it just kept going. So it wound up, I finally finished about 2 o'clock or 2:30. And it is, how do I put this? It is an interesting, engrossing, often disturbing, and ultimately personal look at some of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes here at TSL, specifically with regards to the message boards. I don't think I've ever written anything like it. So
Wow.
yeah, if you're a subscriber, make sure you don't miss it. You will find it very interesting. So I'll tease it. That's a clickbait tease, but you know me, I don't delve into clickbait. So it is, like I said, I've been doing this over 20 years, and I've never written anything like this. So check it out.
We had a good conversation about clickbait a couple podcasts ago.
We did?
Yeah.
What were we talking about?
About certain quotes being taken out of context and then clickbait.
Right. That was the rant about the whole transfer portal thing.
Yes. All of our articles are pushed out on our social media platforms. We invite you to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, as well as Instagram at Tech Sideline. Be sure to follow us and stay up to date with everything going on in Virginia Tech athletics.
Yeah, so our philosophy for Twitter is that we're a little different. I guess we're not, actually. If you look at sports writers, they all have their own individual Twitter accounts. Like Norm Wood is at Norm Wood. Andy Bitter is at Andy Bitter VT. The way it evolved on Tech Sideline was we have the at Tech Sideline Twitter feed, and then Chris and I both have our individual Twitter feeds, Will Stewart TSL and Chris Coleman TSL. And we finally, after many years of just randomly doing whatever, we finally set our strategy as you follow us on at Tech Sideline to get article links. We'll retweet news and stats and things like that. And if you want to, typically if you want to follow us during a game, the game action, that's the one to follow. If you want more opinionated, offbeat type stuff, then you follow our individual accounts. But of course, the solution is just follow all three. And in our at Tech Sideline Twitter feed, we try to be clear when an article that we're tweeting is a pay article. You know, we try to make that clear so you don't click on it and get mad.
Well, we used to be. I don't do that anymore.
I do when I tweet stuff out.
I don't do it because I want people to go to click on it and be able to read the first 3 or 4 paragraphs and say,
that's true.
That's really interesting. And then say, oh, I can't read anymore. I have to pay. Let me
And
try
then
that.
it's a great time to become part of the family right then and there.
That's right.
Right. Well, it depends. You know, you only got 280 characters. You know, so if you want to properly describe or tease an article, you know, sometimes we don't mention that it's.
It used to be even tougher when it was 140 characters. It was
well, you know where I really do it is I really do it on Facebook because when Andy Bitter was here the other day, he said his Facebook feed is not as popular as it used to be when he worked for the Roanoke Times and everything was free. So if you keep just dropping links to pay articles and you don't warn people on Facebook, they get pretty mad.
Real quick, I want to do this before we move on because there was some big news from our Virginia Tech football and baseball beat writer yesterday. I want to quickly shout out Corey Van Dyke, who announced he's got some big plans this summer. He accepted a position with the National Baseball Hall of Fame as a communications PR intern. Of course, Corey really loves baseball. And I just want to take a quick moment. We had Corey on a podcast last year when you were out of town one time. He just has done great work, it just felt like, for TSL over the last couple of years. I wanted to just give a moment to highlight Corey, and if you guys just want to chime in on just how great of a person it is to have Corey work for TSL.
You know, he applied for that job at the Baseball Hall of Fame, put us down as a reference, and we never got a phone call. At least I didn't.
Yeah.
I assume you didn't either. So
I did not.
They didn't even need to reference him. Like, his work speaks for itself.
Yeah, the body of work is out there.
His body of work is out there, and it's awesome. And I think his last visit to Cooperstown was when he was 12. He was playing baseball up there. Now that he's older, he'll appreciate it more. Actually, you ever seen the movie A League of Their Own?
I'm not.
You've not seen A League of Their Own? You're a sports fan? Oh, this is awful.
There's no crying in baseball. You've heard that line, right?
Yes, I actually have.
That's
heard
from
that. And I've heard of the movie. I had not even heard of all.
But there's an opening scene where there's a baseball game being played when everybody's in town at the Baseball Hall of Fame, and that stadium is actually right there. I parked in the parking lot to that stadium to go to the Baseball Hall of Fame, and I watched like a Little League game in there. But yeah, it's a cool little town, and when I say little, I mean little. I was up there. I was up there for like I think it was a holiday. I think it might have been Memorial Day when I was up there. There was like 2 bars in the town. So I was trying to watch the Braves game, but since it was Memorial Day, one of the 2 bars was closed. And the other bar actually didn't have the baseball package. which is just odd.
You're a bar in Cooperstown,
right?
and you don't have the baseball.
Didn't have the baseball package.
Wow.
And so I couldn't watch the Braves game that night. That was strange. Anyway.
But I just want to take a moment. For
Yeah,
Corey.
so Corey is he's graduating this year, and baseball is actually his first love. It's the sport he played, and and he wants to be a baseball writer. So it's a good opportunity for him. And of course, my first question was, is that a paid internship? And yes, it is. So I see this as the Hall of Fame is hiring Corey. They're going to kick his tires and see what they think. So it's a good start for him.
Yeah, it's funny, he's going to be writing for their newsletter, and I get that newsletter.
Yeah.
Ever since,
Wow.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations to Corey. Great way to kind of open up the podcast here. Episode 119. Again, this podcast is going to be centered all around you and the questions. So any questions you may have, any sport, trivia, whatever you got for Will and Chris, drop it now. Malcolm will write it down. We'll get to it very soon. We only have a little bit of planned content here in the beginning part of the podcast, and let's move to that right now. We record on Wednesday morning, February 19th, and Virginia Tech looks to make it 2 in a row against Miami at 9 o'clock inside of Cassell Coliseum. Not 6, not 7, not 8, 9 o'clock as Chris rolls his eyes on the couch. But what I'll say to that, the Hurricanes 13-10, 5-10 in the conference. What's different about this game compared to a couple weeks ago when Tech lost 71-61?
Tech didn't play well, and they didn't play well in the first half. They were down 22 at halftime.
Yeah, it was 41-19 at one point.
Yeah, that's right. It was, and they came back and cut it to 4 in the second half. So Virginia Tech didn't play a good game. They didn't play a good 40 minutes of basketball. On the other hand, Miami was without leading scorer Chris Likes. McGusty played, but only sparingly, and he was rusty and didn't play very well. So Miami was basically without their 2 best players in that game. So that part is concerning.
And they still hammered
And
Tech.
they still hammered Tech in the first half.
Yeah.
So that part is concerning. That being said, Mike Young on Tech Talk Live on Monday night said Miami's only won one road game this year, and that was back in December. I haven't looked that up myself to confirm it. I'm just assuming that Mike Young is correct.
And wasn't that part of a 3-day playing at Boston College, then playing at Miami stretch for Virginia Tech, or like a 4-day stretch?
Yeah,
I think it was
Saturday, Tuesday.
Saturday, Tuesday.
Yeah. And the Saturday, Wednesday games are few and far between this year. It seems like Tech's played a lot of Tuesday games.
I think the ACC plays a lot of games on Tuesday nights. I think they have a pretty heavy schedule on Tuesday.
They do. I mean, the league's expanded now. There's 20 games a year. It used to be it seemed like Wednesday was the main midweek night, but at least for Tech this year, it seems like it's been Tuesday.
I think it's Tuesday. And so that's a stretch where you go up to Boston College. There's nobody there.
Oh, it was the 2 longest trips
in the 2 least full, quietest arenas.
Right.
And
right.
I think it's just weird for guys.
The BC crowd was the best crowd for a BC Tech game I've seen in a while, because they were retiring Troy Bell's jersey.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was a decent crowd that day. But, it's you fly to Boston, you fly back to Blacksburg, then you fly to Miami.
And they have to by NCAA rules, by the way. They could not in that stretch go from Boston all the way down to Miami and just spend their time in Miami.
Right. It's that was a tough stretch. It's a home game. It's a winnable home game, so you got to win it. You've lost to Boston College at home
twice.
Well, I'm talking about home games.
Right.
So it's a home game that you need to win, because you can't lose 2 home games to teams in the bottom half of the league, is the way I see it. So you need to go ahead and actually, I don't even know where Boston College is in the standings, but I know
they're creeping around. Last I saw, they were 7-8.
Right, which is a testament to how bad the ACC is, because BC is a bad basketball team.
Yeah, and they've beaten Tech twice. I told you I watched them beat NC State the other night.
There's some rumors. John Beilein is being mentioned for that job, assuming he leaves the Pistons.
Well, no, it is confirmed.
He's
confirmed. Cavaliers. He's leaving the Cavaliers.
Cavaliers.
Yep. After I think he signed a 5-year deal. He doesn't make it a half season.
That was a bad. I never thought that was a good decision. Now from what I understand, he got tired of the recruiting game at a big school like Michigan. He's an old school coach. He just likes to coach X's and O's. Yep. Boston College would be a good fit for him.
It's a different recruiting game.
BC's never going to recruit at a high level. At their peak under Al Skinner, I don't know why we're spending time talking about the
About
ins and out of Boston College basketball, but
because we can't stand him, we hate losing to him, so we're talking about
but
it.
that they could go out to California in the month of July, 2 months before practice starts, and find some random dude named Jared Dudley that nobody else wanted.
He's still balling in the NBA right now.
Is he
for the
really?
Lakers.
He absolutely is.
He's actually not a bad player.
Jared Dudley had a dad bod when he was 18 years old. There was nothing about this dude that made you think he was a future NBA player, right? But he just knew how to play.
Yeah.
And
Did you just use the word dad bod
I
on
did.
the podcast?
I mean,
I love it, Chris.
does that not accurately describe Jared Dudley? Okay.
Jared Dudley last
Well, that's
year.
how he looked when he was 18.
Wow.
Playing for Boston College. He's always looked like that. And so Beeline in a system like that, at a program like that, is probably a pretty good fit.
You're right. They're not going to be a great recruiting school, but that said, there is a segment of the basketball playing high schoolers that they appeal to.
Well,
and if you found the right guys, and
they got to be a system program.
Yeah.
When they had Al Skinner, what was that? The tight flex offense. They ran a specific system, and he recruited to that system.
And Skinner was a good coach for them, and then he got Pasqualoni'd,
But you put Beeline in the ACC. Wow, that would be an interesting dynamic. Talk about just getting another coach that's gotten two national championships games. And
it would be an interesting short-term dynamic.
Yeah.
What is he, 67?
Yeah, I'm sure he's close to 70.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's interesting there about Boston College. Real quick, I'm going to ask Will this straight up here before we move on. Tech 6-8. Is this a must-win for Tech considering the rest of their schedule if they want the NIT?
Well, we spent a lot of time the other day talking about how many of the remaining six games left or 5. How many of them can Tech win? And this is one, if you want to win some games and have a winning record, you got to win this one.
Right, correct.
And as we also talked about, the NIT is just so hard to predict because there's a lot of bid stealing that goes on.
Right now, somebody sent us a link on Twitter.
Yeah, Cyber Hockey.
NIT
bracketology that came out yesterday, so this is pretty up to date, has Tech as a 6 seed playing at SMU, the 3 seed, to begin the NIT. So,
all right.
And it's actually a pretty interesting field. This has NC State as a 1 seed, Texas in there, Tennessee, UConn, VCU, Arkansas. I mean, a lot of schools that typically are in the NCAA tournament.
NC State is a 1 seed in the NIT. If they don't make the NCAA tournament this year, they ought to be ashamed of themselves because they got good players on that team and the ACC's down.
Yeah, this year should have been. No, they're having a decent year, but they go to Boston College and lose. You can't do that.
Right. Yeah.
Let's go ahead and move on here to talk a little bit about Cassell Coliseum as a whole, because there is some news that came out actually this weekend about Cassell and our Virginia Tech's athletic director, Whit Babcock.
So Malcolm tossed the tweet up onto the television.
So this was somebody tweeted at him. It was a picture of J-Rob and Ace Custis shaking hands at Cassell, and it perfectly displays half the maroon seating in the student section and then half of the wooden chairs above it.
The old chairs, yeah.
The old chairs. And someone tweets at Whit, "We have to get those seats finished at Whit Babcock." And he responds, says, "Agreed. Coming after this season, $800,000 with a couple of emojis. Budgeted 18 months ago, one step at a time. Bolder plans for Cassell and football forthcoming. Hashtag nice dub. Hashtag Hokies." So
he's telling you they're going to spend $800,000 to replace the rest of the seats in Cassell.
Right.
and make it all
With the chair backs, with the cup holders.
real quick, for those that haven't had a chance to sit in those maroon chairs, are they comfortable chairs?
They're much better than the old chairs.
Now they're not cushioned; they're hard plastic, but they're still
they're fine. The old seats were actually put there in the 1960s when Cassell.
And at one point refinished, but they were removed, refinished, and put back in.
I've got 3 of those seats in my closet at home.
When did you buy those?
Several years ago.
Yeah.
My God, they're heavy. I can't lift it. Oh, they're all welded together, like 1960s design.
Yeah.
Like the seats aren't separate. Like 3 of them they're all connected.
You need to
each
tweet
other.
out a picture of those.
Yeah, they're buried in the back of my closet somewhere. Which I'm actually thinking about. Like, what am I going to do with 3 old seats like that? Lug them around for the rest of my life. I'm thinking about selling them to anybody who wants it and donating the money to the TSL Scholarship Fund or something like that. Doing a little auction.
I'll think about that.
Yeah.
I don't think I can really put him anywhere in my house, but maybe.
How about we bring him on the podcast?
Maybe
so we do a
here.
podcast sitting in those chairs.
No, they have to be connected to something. They're literally laying against my wall, like those old seat designs and everything. You basically weld them down, I guess, to whatever.
Yeah.
I actually think Bill has one in his office at Tech in
Bill
Shanks
Roth.
Hall. Actually,
Bill's got a lot of things.
Yeah. So
Well, we can bring him here, and we can do like a live auction.
No, I'm not bringing them in here. You've never tried to lift.
This is fun.
It's fun. You've never tried to lift those things.
Well, we'll get Malcolm, the best producer in the land, to come over
That's
there
what I'm
and put it in the
saying.
back of the pickup truck.
Look, he's got that smile on his face. I tell you what, I'm still upset about the whole AAU basketball thing. I'm taking Malcolm, and I'm starting 5. All right, if I'm on a team.
Right.
So, all right, yeah, thank you. I got you, Malcolm. Real quick, the future of Cassell Coliseum. This is, I feel like, a topic that a lot of Tech fans have talked about for quite some time. Will they ever tear it down and build it back up? Will they renovate it? I mean, now that they're going to put $800,000 to finish the seats inside, what do you guys think the future is of Cassell Coliseum?
Assuming they're going to do all the seats that are in there right now, that kind of leads me to believe that when they do announce a refurbishment of Cassell, which is coming soon, from what we understand, as Whit alluded to, that they're not going to touch the interior as far as the part where you sit and watch the game. Because why would you spend $800,000 on seats just to rip those seats up a couple years from now and redo the interior, right? So to me, that's a hint that the interior is not going to change very much at all. And if it is, it'll be limited to one part of the arena as opposed to the whole thing. But like, they're not going to totally gut it like Georgia Tech did with Alexander Memorial Coliseum when they completely changed that arena. That's just a completely different place. I think Tech's renovations of Cassell will be limited to exterior stuff and stuff outside the bowl.
The concourses.
The concourses are going to get bigger and wider. The exterior will have a different look, probably a lot more glass. The flying buttresses.
Hey, Malcolm, can you pull up a picture of the exterior of Cassell Coliseum?
I'm not a building construction guy, but I think the flying buttresses or whatever, I think they're just there for show. I don't think they're actually supporting anything. So, and they're dirty all the time anyway. They look terrible. So I think the exterior is going to look a lot different. It's going to be more glass. It's going to look like, excuse me, it's going to look more like, basically a new modern arena, like William and Mary just announced theirs, and it looks fantastic. Yeah. So I do think you'll see some changes on the interior when you're watching a game.
Malcolm,
but
actually put that over on the video that you're streaming out, so people, you got it. Okay. So if you look at Cassell, certainly the side that faces AJ and Dietrich and all that, that's where the entry is and the ticket office. You can tear that completely off and do something really nice and new. If you look at the sides, those archways, those buttresses or whatever you want to call them that come out, you can tear down the exterior vertical walls and bring them out further and really widen the concourses and make a really nice external appearance and entry in from both sides, really. So there's a lot you can do with it without ever really touching the bowl, And one of the points we wanted to make is that there are no plans to actually build a new building.
They're not going to.
That is not.
Where would you put it, first of all?
Yeah.
All right. So people want a new practice facility, or not a new practice facility, but a new football
operations center.
They want a new Cassell Coliseum. Well, there's not room enough to do both of those things. There's just not.
So I heard many years ago, and I could never find this in any planning documents or anything on Virginia Tech's website, or I researched it one time, I couldn't find it. But somebody told me that years ago, the original plan was to build a new convocation center / Coliseum on Chicken Hill, which, that I'm not saying that's the plan now. That's not going to happen. But I can picture that, that would be good access to 460. You come down Southgate and boom, you're right there.
Right.
It'd be a longer walk for the students.
Yeah, I see. Attendance is so fickle these days. You want your students to be there, and making them walk all the way to Chicken Hill on a February night when it's 20 degrees, that's not a good idea. We need to keep that as close to the
leave it where
as
it is,
possible.
right? Yeah. So that's not going to happen. And the other thing is that Tech fans really, and our athletic director, Whit Babcock, they really prize that steeply banked configuration of Cassell that traps the noise, and they don't build them these days. They can't build them.
The fire codes. If you knock Cassell down and tried to rebuild it from scratch, you would not get a good home court atmosphere, or at least not as good a one as exists now, because the new fire codes would not allow it.
Yeah.
Interesting point.
Yeah.
So you didn't know about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are even limits on. I don't think you can even go in and start tearing out some of the concrete that supports the seats. I think once you start doing something like that, you have to redo it and do it to code.
Yeah, like why do you think Duke's never redone their arena?
Yeah.
Right. I've never been in Cameron Indoor Stadium. I've walked by it before, and I didn't even know I was walking by it because it looks like every other building. On
it sneaks up on you. Now,
Yeah.
Cassell, you can't miss Cassell.
You can't miss Cassell.
I was in Cameron, but gosh, that was almost 30 years ago.
Plus, if you tear down Cassell, which they won't, one of the most underrated things that's ever happened at Cassell Coliseum would officially go away. It would just be a legend. I was just looking at this and confirmed. Do you guys remember when David Wilson ran up the side of Cassell Coliseum?
There is no evidence of that.
But there's
also a story about him catching a rabbit on the drill field.
Right. And David, to his credit, never denied any of these stories.
So
I
actually just looked it up to try and figure it out before I said it. And pull this up, Malcolm. Someone did take a bike down Cassell.
Oh God, I hate watch that. So Malcolm just showed a video of a kid who's carried a bicycle all the way up one of those archways and then ridden it down, and the laws of physics take over when he reaches the bottom.
So yeah, if you're Virginia Tech, you see a video like that, and you're gonna be like, man, someday somebody's going to do something stupid and then sue us because they were stupid, right?
That was dumb. Why take a bike? So, for those listening, a bike down one of the arch?
One of the arches, one of the flying buttresses, whatever
that bike
they're
had
called.
to have broken. I mean, as soon as that hit contact with the ground, I mean, that makes me cringe.
Well, the kid went to the hospital. He had some broken bones. To his credit, he did not sue Virginia Tech. But now that we bring it up, if I am Whit Babcock and the architects, I am making sure that nobody can do that again.
Yeah, I mean, if those flying buttresses, if they don't have to be there, then I don't see the point of them. Because if you're going to make it a modern looking arena, those flying buttresses, they just get in the way of the view.
They're still going to stick out, yeah. Right. Even if you bring the walls out like I described.
Yeah. They're still going to stick out, and they're going to. I can't picture exactly what Cassell's would look like. I have an idea in my head. But those flying buttresses, they would just ruin the view.
All right, listen, if you're good with Photoshop, put together a concept. So this is out to the listening audience. If you're good with Photoshop, get yourself a good large exterior picture of Cassell and go to town. Tear off the ticket office and all that and do something on that side. Pull the walls out and do something, glass out there that looks really awesome. So have at it. Hopefully Virginia Tech has some concepts they're going to roll out.
Last word on Cassell, I looked up the 3 words, David Wilson Cassell, into Twitter, and there's an ACC Network tweet on December 23rd, 2019. What was your favorite ACC sports moment of the decade? Packer and Durham debate, and Larry at Hokey Bird Rules on Christmas Eve goes, David Wilson running up the outside of Cassell Coliseum. So, anyways. All right, let's do this. Let's take a time out here on the Tech Sideline podcast. When we come back, we spend the rest of the podcast. We've got about a half hour left, taking nothing but questions from you, those watching live on Facebook Live. Drop your questions now. Malcolm reads it to Will and Chris. That's how we wrap up episode 119 of the Tech Sideline podcast, brought to you by the Fisher Law Firm. Welcome back into the Tech Sideline Podcast, episode 119. So glad you're with us. Evan Hughes, Chris Coleman, Will Stewart, Malcolm Stewart. We transition now to one of our favorite parts of the podcast, the Q&A part of the podcast, where you get to ask the questions. We discuss it on the podcast set. But I was just talking to Malcolm in between the break, and it does not sound like anybody's gotten the song lyric yet. We started off the podcast with, the mind is a powerful place, and what you feed it can affect you in a powerful way. What's that song? You want to give any hints, Will?
I will tell you that song is not the typical Facebook demographic. I'm not surprised that anybody on Facebook is saying, oh, that's such and such. Twitter would get it pretty fast.
Is this can you give us a hint? Is this song that is before or
It
after.
is not sung. It is rapped. So that's your clue.
Okay, there we go. All right, let's turn it over to.
And I'll add this: if you watch ESPN, if you watched ESPN during college football season, you've heard this.
Any idea, Chris?
No. I'm not musically inclined, so I don't know. I like songs because of the beat, right? I really don't listen to lyrics.
I like songs because of the
so-
lyrics. So
yeah,
I had this
yeah, so-
conversation with a buddy of mine. If you could only listen to 10 songs for the rest of your life, what would they be? So we can sort of start working that into the podcast. I have a list of about 5 songs so far.
One day we're gonna have a podcast where we just talk about movies and songs. That's it. One day
We'll either get a record number of listeners or high or low.
right.
One way.
It's gonna be one way or the other.
All right.
All right, let's turn it over to the best producer in the land, Malcolm Stewart. Malcolm, what's going on Facebook Live?
2 people got the song already.
Okay.
It's The Search by NF.
The Search by NF.
Search by NF.
And it was used in promos for college football on ESPN.
Good to know.
So if you've seen the promo on ESPN and you've heard the lyric, it's that time again, better grab your balloons and invite your friends. Those are the lyrics from the same song. So never heard of him before. He is, people tell me he's an Eminem wannabe. I don't know. I downloaded the song. I like it. And I like it because there is not one curse word or degrading reference to women.
Well, then he's not an Eminem wannabe.
Exactly. He's Eminem with all the curse words and derogatory female comments removed. So I like it. So and NF The Search. So download it and have a listen.
All right. We'll start with shorter answer questions, and then we'll get into the fun ones. Eric Fisher, what's the oldest movie Evan has ever seen?
Well, The Wizard of Oz. Technically, we go on like dates. I mean, The Wizard of Oz was like, what, the early 1930s?
Late 1930s, like 1938. Or, The Wizard of Oz came out the same year that Gone with the Wind came out, I
And
believe.
I've seen
Did it
Gone.
really?
For a class in middle school, I had to watch Gone with the
Phenomenal year
Gone
for
with the Wind.
movies.
Well, King Kong was right around there too, right? Late 30s.
Kong was 33, I believe.
Oh, was it
and I
there?
think Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind were 38 or 39.
See, I'll say this about me. I need to obviously do some work on some movies, but all I listen to is 80s music. Okay, so I don't really listen to now. Like, that's all I listen to. So if we want to talk music and 80s, like, that's all me. But so I guess The Wizard of Oz would be the oldest movie that I've seen.
Probably the oldest one I've seen is I think it's called 12 Angry Men. Yeah, I'm pretty sure 12 Angry Men.
I've also seen episodes of The Three Stooges. That's pretty old, right?
I think
That's TV.
Yeah.
I know not.
Yeah,
movie,
yeah.
but-
That'd be 40s, I guess. Right?
What, 12 Angry Men or
No,
Stooges?
the
Yeah, I don't know.
Stooges. Yeah,
I don't
I'm
know.
not sure. I remember when I was in school, or maybe in elementary school, we watched like the silent Dracula movie from like 1912 or something like that. So that would be like the oldest movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I
Good
don't-
question. I had to think about that for a minute. Oh, real quick, last one. What's my favorite Christmas movie? It's a Wonderful Life. It's my favorite Christmas movie.
I've never
What's
seen
the first movie you remember seeing in the movie theater?
it.
Actually, a really good memory. My mom picked me up, surprised me on my birthday from preschool, and we went to go see Lilo and Stitch the movie when I was in preschool. I'll never forget it.
Top Gun. For
Top
me.
Gun?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, I was 3. So I assume my parents really wanted to see the movie. And they said, he's 3. He won't pick up on anything.
Oh,
They
no,
just took
the
me with me.
R-rated stuff. Is
Right.
Top Gun R or PG-13?
It was PG-13.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quite the
but
contrast.
I don't.
Top Gun, Lilo and Stitch the movie.
I don't remember like the details, but I do remember sitting in the theater in that opening scene when all the planes are taking off from the
Wow.
from, and I remember being 3 years old and I was like, whoa.
I'm sure I saw the first one I saw was a Disney movie. I don't remember what it was. I remember the first one I took Malcolm to. It was a Peter Pan movie called, I can't remember the name of it. But he was a little guy. He was like he was probably 3 years old, sitting in the movie theater, and his feet didn't reach the end of the seat. And he was sitting there with the popcorn in his lap, just smiling, just like, wow, look at that giant TV. Return to Neverland or something like that. I don't remember.
That sounds right. That sounds about right.
Yeah. All right, next question.
From David French, as much as we hate UNC basketball, and we do we need UNC to be good at hoops to help the ACC hoops reputation?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
and
that,
yes.
that would be ideal. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
You obviously worry about what happens when at UNC and Duke when Roy Williams retires and when Coach K retires. I think the bigger worry is at Duke because Duke is a little more niche, I would say, than UNC. UNC is a big state school. They've been successful in basketball with more than one head coach now.
Yeah.
It hasn't just been Roy Williams. Duke,
And Duke had some good coaches pre-Coach K. I'm not sure how good, though.
like Bill Foster, not Tex Bill Foster.
Vic Bubas, I think, was his name.
Yeah, but it was K who really took him to the next level.
Yes.
And the thing is, like, you can make a strong argument that in his prime, Coach K is the best college basketball coach. John
In the
Wooden,
history of
Coach
the
K.
world.
Yeah, right. Yeah, So his replacement is probably not. It's not going to be as good as Coach K was in his prime. I'm not sure that guy even exists.
Right.
Is the
But-
the replacement Jeff Capel? Do you think when it comes down?
If it is, then Duke's not going to be nearly as good.
The Pitt
Do they
head
go with
coach?
Woj? Do they go with a guy who's
Wojo's a possibility. At one point, I thought it was going to be Mike Bray, but Coach K kept coaching and he kept coaching and he kept coaching, and at this point, he might outlast Mike Bray.
Yeah.
Because Mike Bray was a former Duke assistant. So I think there will be drop off at Duke. UNC, like I think Roy's a very good coach, but I don't quite put him in the same stature as Coach K. So I remember back in the day, I used to think, okay, like Shaka Smart's going to get that UNC job one day, and oh God, who's the coach of the Celtics who was at Butler?
Brad Stevens.
I thought Brad Stevens would get the Duke job, but those Roy and Coach K just kept coaching and coaching and
Yeah.
coaching and coaching, and now
And
that's
Boeheim's
happen.
doing the same thing at Syracuse.
Yeah, exactly. I think we know who the Syracuse coach will be. It'll be
Guy in
the
Washington.
Hopkins, the guy at Washington. He was Boeheim's longtime top assistant at Syracuse, and finally got tired of being his top assistant and took a job somewhere else. So
He's doing a decent job with
He's done a nice
Washington,
job at Washington. So if you want to keep the Boeheim culture, keep the same system and everything
2-3
like that,
zone.
then you go out and hire that guy.
And I will say this again. I'm very concerned that the money aspect of college sports, specifically with regards to the SEC and the Big Ten, is enabling them to pull ahead of the ACC. The Big Ten's already done it.
Oh yeah.
Just look at the rankings. I mean, Penn freaking State, for crying out loud, is ranked 9th in the country. Penn State.
Rutgers could outbid Duke for a basketball coach if they really wanted to.
Yes. So that's what you're dealing with. And certainly, I've gone over this before. In the first 10 years of the ACC Big Ten Challenge, the ACC dominated it. In the following 10-plus years, the Big Ten is not dominating it to the same degree, but they are winning it. They're winning more of them. And this year,
The issue with college sports, in my opinion, is the conferences themselves and TV deals, and signing their own TV deals.
they are really separated.
Can you imagine what Major League Baseball would be like if the AL East could sign its own TV deal with the Yankees and Red Sox?
Wow.
And compare that to what? Oh, I don't know, the
NL Central.
right, yeah, what the NL Central would look like, or any other division, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Right. So you'd have the Cubs in the NL Central, and that's it.
Yeah.
Basically. They'd be carrying the load. I mean, the AL East, you'd have the Yankees, the Red Sox. Baltimore's got a pretty good fan base, obviously. So that division, their TV contract would be insane, just because they get to broadcast 18 Yankees Red Sox games every year. Right. And they would, and their TV contract would mean they would slowly pass the NL East and what they were able to pay players and everything like that, because there's no salary cap in Major League Baseball. So that's the issue with college sports is the conferences getting to sign their own TV deals and things like that.
And back when Seth Greenberg was coaching the Hokies, there were a handful of years there where the ACC was like a 4-bid league, and that's not good. And you look at it this year, I think the Big Ten's going to send 10 or 11 teams to the tournament.
Which is nuts.
And the ACC is going to send 3, maybe 4. If that persists, there's big trouble coming in the balance of power. And the SEC is already starting to spend a ton of money on basketball coaches.
Real quick, I have no ties whatsoever to Rutgers, but I'm happy for their fan base. Can you imagine being a Rutgers fan? Seriously, since 2011, they've had nothing to cheer for. Football.
They didn't have much to cheer for before then.
Anyways, I feel like that fan base right now is on cloud 9. So, anyways,
We'll see if they actually show up to celebrate their good feelings.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right, next.
Matt Bernard, would you be willing to sell the naming rights to Worsham Field if the Worsham family is willing to rename the new dorm after Wes? Washington and Maryland sold the naming rights to their field specifically, but not the stadium, and received $4.1 million and $2.1 million per year, respectively.
Per year.
Wow.
I don't think the issue here with naming rights to Worsham Field or Lane Stadium has anything to do with the Worshams. It has to do with being able to find a company to sign the contract. We've talked about this before.
Yeah, I don't know how the Worshams would feel about that. I know when Tech did the thing with English Field, of course, and sold it to Union or Atlantic Union.
Yeah, Atlantic Union Bank now.
I don't think I'd always heard the English family wasn't big on that, so
not real thrilled
about it. They paid $1 million in the late '80s to get that stadium named after them, and that was a lot of money in the late '80s for an athletic department back then. So the compromise was reached where it's English Field at Atlantic Union Park. Yeah, so I don't know. I'd be if it would make Tech more money, I would certainly be in favor of it. But that's something they would have to go through the Worsham family.
Yeah, I think I can't regurgitate it off the top of my head, but if you look at what UVA went through, they had Scott Stadium, then they named their field. I can't remember who their field is named
David
after.
A. Harrison Field.
Yeah, David A. Harrison Field. And so it's David A. Harrison Field in Scott Stadium in some named
John Paul Jones III.
complex, so they've got actually 3 names that they've attached to their football stadium. So it's Jim Weaver. I looked at the original Lane Stadium West Side expansion information, which is archived somewhere on TSL. I looked at that stuff a couple of months ago, and the original plan for expanding the West Side had something like $5 million in naming rights. Well, I got news for you. That never unfolded. That never happened.
Tech got $500,000 from Carillion for the court in Cassell.
Yeah, per year.
I think they're getting $250 a year for Union.
Right. So this is what you're not talking $2 and $4 million a year. You're talking amounts in the hundreds of thousands. And that's just because of where Tech is.
Right. Well, that's where it's easier to sell big corporate sponsorships in cities, in urban environments. What school were you talking about, Malcolm? That
was it Maryland?
Maryland. If it was Maryland,
it was Maryland and Washington.
Okay, that would make complete sense.
Washington and Seattle.
I mean, Wake Forest, BB&T Field, but they're in Winston-Salem, right? So it's easier to sell corporate sponsorships in cities where there's a lot of people around.
Well, they average what? Upper 20,000 fans per game, and they've got naming rights to their football stadium.
Tech got Carillion, but it's like, okay, everybody's got to go to the hospital at some point, right?
I don't understand why healthcare companies advertise so much.
Right. I don't know. I really don't either. I don't know. Like, you get sick, you go to the hospital. It's
right.
Not,
I don't shop.
Right.
But maybe some people do. I don't know.
Maybe some people do.
All right. Next question.
I told you, man. I had to go back and look up the names of those teams. Billy Lester. It seems like the Stars rankings for recruiting is outdated. If recruiting services rank kids numerically to establish star rankings, why can't they just do a numerical ranking of kids and use that for team recruiting rankings?
Well, they do.
They do to a certain extent. They have this recruit is ranked 0.893 or whatever.
Right.
The thing it's kind of buried though because you have to click on his profile, I think, to see the numerical ranking maybe.
But I will admit, even though that I know that, I always look at the stars
It's
first.
just easier to look at that star and say, 3-star, 4-star.
Yeah.
But you have to take it, as we've talked about, with a grain of salt. The number 30 recruit in the country might be a 4-star recruit, but also the number 278 recruit in the country is a 4-star recruit. I was looking up Ryan Williams' profile the other day when I was doing an article, and Ryan Williams was the number 26 recruit in the country by ESPN.
Really?
Coming out of high school, which these days would equate to 5-star.
Yeah.
He was high 4-star then, but the 26th recruit in the country these days is 5-star.
And I don't think that's unreasonable. That dude, man.
Well, there were others that had him, like maybe Rivals only had him number 7 in the state. And closer to, between top 50 and top 100, something like that. That was because he was always hurt in high school. He only had 1 year in high school where he rushed for 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
So it was really hard to predict him to be durable, which he was not.
He turned out not to be.
He turned out not to be.
At Tech or in the NFL.
Right. Just not a durable football player.
So I'll say this. Part of the difficulty with the numerical ranking that is associated with players by something like 24/7. Mm-hmm. Lower 3 stars are 0.8 something. Upper 3 stars are 0.8 something.
Yeah.
I think lower 4 stars might even be 0.8 something.
Right.
So if you get graded on a test, you know that a 50 is something in the 50s is bad, 60s is bad, 70s is mediocre, 80s, 90s. When you're dealing with 3 stars up to 4 stars being in the 0.8 something range, it just doesn't pop like stars do.
Right. And even stars, it's like these days for a Power 5 team, you're a 3-star guy like even your worst players, like Rutgers is filled with 3-star recruits, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like there's nobody wants to say, "Oh, I don't feel like that kid's a very good prospect for this level."
Yeah.
Nobody wants to click on 247 and read their scouting report of a player and say, "Probably should have signed with JMU instead of Rutgers." Or
He's
something
a 2-star.
Right. Now, if it were me, I would definitely change things. I would go 1 through 5 stars.
Yep, like they used to in the very beginning.
And cry me a river, but that's how I would do it. And I would do half stars.
Yes, I agree with half stars.
A half-star system. I don't know if I would start it at a half. I might start at 1 and then go 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, et cetera, et cetera. Because it's the 4-star thing. A lot of people think 4-star is an elite level recruit. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's Ryan Williams, ranked 26 in the country. Stephen Friday was also a 4-star recruit, but he would rank somewhere between 250th and 300th.
He was a developmental guy the way.
Didn't play till he was a redshirt senior, right? Yeah. So there's a big difference, but yet if you sit there and look at it, they're both 4 stars, and people see the same player. Yeah. In reality, Ryan Williams should have been a 4.5-star recruit, and Stephen Friday should have been a 3.5-star recruit.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's definitely something I would change.
Yeah. All right. Good question. How many minutes are we in, Malcolm? We're trying to keep these things under an hour
About
these
50?
days.
We just hit 49.
Sweet.
All right, from Curtis Hill, thoughts on the ACC supporting a transfer rule allowing a one-time transfer opportunity for all athletes.
Will just hit his head on the microphone as that question was read.
I heard Chris being interviewed on the radio yesterday, and I think he got some clarification on this. But I haven't looked at this very, very deeply. Let me finish If you just look at the tweet or whatever, the quote that the ACT produced, you're like, I don't get it. What are you talking about? One-time transfer, what does that mean? They didn't say without sitting out. So what, right. Chris, what
I was under the impression that it means everybody gets a freebie. But I think Paul, whose show I was on yesterday, was not under that impression. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I can't answer the question because I don't really know.
I don't know what they meant.
I don't know what they meant. I still assume that means everybody gets a freebie. You can transfer once without sitting out a year, but you can't transfer more than once or something.
That's
like
how I interpret it.
You can't play for more than 2 schools. So you don't have to sit out a year when you transfer, but you can't transfer more than once. So Damon Hazelton could have transferred to from Ball State to Virginia Tech without sitting out a year. He would have been eligible in 2017, but he wouldn't have been able to transfer again. Virginia Tech would have been his final
I'll bet if they go in that direction, there's still the graduate transfer.
There would still be the graduate transfer thing.
Well, he could transfer a second time. He would just have to sit out a year. That's Hazelton at Missouri, right?
The tweet is vague. I don't know.
Right. The quote is vague.
I really don't know how. There's no perfect solution to transfers. There's never. I mean, people keep asking what should be done. There's no perfect solution. Somebody's going to be mad no matter what.
Yeah. Some are going to win and some are going to lose.
No, I mean, there's two ways to think of it. I think it's completely fair to let them transfer however many times they want to, whenever they want to, from a player standpoint, because regular students can transfer whenever they want to and how many times they want to. Coaches can come and go as they please, so why can't players? But at the same time, I think you hurt the sport if you let it be a free-for-all. I really think it does hurt the credibility of the sport, and I think people lose interest. As long as you keep calling it college football, people will lose interest. So I'm very divided on how I feel should be done. Now, in this rule, if they were given a freebie, if that's what the rules mean, that would have meant that Brock Hoffman would have been eligible last year no matter what.
Yeah.
Which I secretly.
I tell you what, let me cut in and say it will remove the favoritism that is shown towards the Blue Bloods when it comes to deciding on transfer.
Sure.
That exists. I totally believe
that.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I actually think something like that could potentially benefit Virginia Tech to a certain extent. I still don't know that I'd be in favor of it. There's not a perfect answer. I really don't know. It's one of those things like nobody exactly knew what the transfer portal would lead to. No legislation had been enacted like that before. So it's one of those things you got to kind of throw out there, see how it works for a couple of years, and then adjust from there.
Yeah.
So like cost of attendance, right? Except there has been no adjustment to cost of attendance.
No, they botched that.
They botched that, and then they botched it and then buried it, and everybody forgets that it even exists.
All right.
Yeah. So I don't know how I feel about that. It'd be one of those things that you'd have to roll out there and see how it works and see how it affects things.
Hey, Evan, we need to do a future podcast that's just about rants, things we want to rant about. Virginia Tech related, college sports related, not movie related or music related. Just
I like it.
So file that one away because we definitely want to rant about college of attendance. Excuse me, cost of attendance. Yeah.
Duly noted.
I think there's one more thing I had to say about that. I can't remember what it was, so let's just move on.
From Jim Kuhn, we have good coaches and players, but I'm wondering where we stand nationally or in the ACC with alumni giving to the athletic department. Would like to see a large investment in Lane Stadium, North End Zone Horseshoe, more skyboxes, etc. Can we even think about something like this, or do we just not have a giving fan base despite the uptick in Hokie Club membership?
Gosh. Well, how many minutes in?
We could dedicate a whole podcast.
Yeah, I was about to say, let's be brief. Try and get one more question.
Let's parse it out a little bit. I think that, and I've said this on the boards, I think if you put a grandiose plan in front of Hokie fans, that they will respond. There's this notion out there that Hokie fans are cheap, that they don't donate much, that the Hokie Club is a wreck and it isn't any good at taking your money. I don't believe that. I believe if you put an inspiring vision in front of people, they will rally. Now, I will tell you, to answer your question about where Virginia Tech ranks among ACC schools, go to the drivefor25.com website and just look. There's all kinds of graphs and charts there. They're a little out of date because the Drive for 25 is 2 or 3 years old now, but it'll give you an idea of what percentage of living alumni donate, how much money they donate, and so that'll kind of let you know where VT ranks.
I think they were 4% when the Drive for 25 was announced, as far as percentage of graduates who donate to the Hokie Club. I think they're up to around 6% now.
Yeah, they've improved.
As much as people criticize, the Drive for 25 has actually made big strides from a percentage standpoint. Yeah. I think we talked about that on Monday. I mean, from 4% to 6%. I mean, that's a 50% increase.
And it went from like just under 10,000 donors at one point to 16 or 17,000.
Right. So that's a big deal. But that said, I think they do need different leadership in the Hokie Club. But right now they have no leadership because Bill Lanston is gone and they're in the process of hiring someone new. So I think another thing we mentioned on Monday is right now you've got to sit back and be patient because they're in the middle of hiring new Hokie Club leadership. That new Hokie Club guy is going to be a different personality than Lanston. He might want to reorganize the whole organization.
Yeah,
we might be sitting here 6 months from now where we're still seeing changes because he's bringing in new personnel, reorganizing the structure, everything like that. So that's hard to predict. But we do know that Tech is going to announce some things fairly soon, within the next couple months, regarding fundraising and facilities. And, we can flat out say it. Because it was in an email sent out to the Virginia Tech fan base when Bill Lanston moved on. The Virginia Tech, they have a $350 million capital campaign in the works for athletics.
For athletics, right.
Right, for athletics. Now, exactly what that entails, the Cassell Coliseum thing will be in there. You will see more club seats in Lane. The capacity of Lane will be lowered because Virginia Tech can't sell out Lane on a consistent basis anymore.
Well, and in the process of putting in club seats, it'll lower the capacity.
It will lower the capacity. They're going to put in club seats so it'll lower the capacity, but they'll generate more revenue because they're club seats.
Right.
So it's the right move. I don't know exactly what else it will entail, but you're going to see an announcement for the next couple months. So basically, to reiterate what we said on Monday, for everybody worried about facilities and hockey club structure and hockey club leadership and things like that, don't even think about it for the next couple of months, because what you see right now is not what's going to be there 2 months from now.
Right.
They're in the process of hiring someone new and rolling out that plan,
right,
which I expect will get rolled out sometime between now and the spring game. So don't even worry about it right now. Yeah. So just sit back and wait for everything to be revealed, and then decide how you feel about it.
And I will say this, at that point in time, once you see these things occur, rally. Don't sit back and criticize and second guess. Become part of the solution.
Right, yeah, and I worry that Tech fans at this point, we're so used to complaining about things that's going to be the first instinct when that plan is roll out, to look at it and say, well, I would have done this differently. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. This doesn't look at yeah. Exactly.
How's this going to affect me in a bad way?
Right.
Again, and we talked about this at the end of the podcast on Monday. Stop that. Be part of the solution. Don't be part of the problem.
Right.
Let's do one more question.
All right.
From Tom Mary Lester, who is your men's basketball champion this year?
What, in the ACC or nationally?
No, nationally.
I mean, it's tough to argue against Baylor right now, isn't it?
Yeah, number one.
But at the same time, I feel like they need to lose. They need to lose a game because they're unbeaten in the Big 12, right?
Last night, I believe their
beat
game was
Oklahoma
on. They
last
were
night.
23-1 or 24-1.
They're unbeaten in the Big 12, though, right? So they have some kind of
correct,
some kind of long Big 12 winning streak. They need to lose a game at the end of the season or in the Big 12 tournament, because then let's say they go undefeated in the Big 12. Win the Big 12 tournament, and then you got to win 6 straight NCAA tournament games. That's a lot of games against high-level competition that you have to win in a row.
I just don't. I don't see them. And it's not like I sit around and watch Baylor games. I just don't see. When was the last time the number one team going into the tournament actually won the tournament?
Actually, have no
It's
idea.
exactly where I was about to go with it. The last 3-4 years or so, my bracket. Obviously, brackets aren't good, but hasn't been close. I mean, think about it. Who had Auburn in the Final Four last year? Who had
Texas Tech in the
Texas
championship?
Tech in the championship? Even Michigan State in the same region as Duke. I wonder how many people had Duke not at least in the Final Four last year. Then you go back the year before and forget. But again, Loyola Chicago, and you're getting these 6 to 8 seeds now making it. I feel like it's getting harder and harder to predict.
Well, a few years ago, wasn't Kentucky one of the most dominant teams in college basketball? They went into the tournament undefeated and didn't win it.
Yeah. No, I think they might have lost the round of 32.
Yeah, and they were more dominant than, I'm guessing. I mean, Baylor's actually lost a game. That Kentucky team hadn't lost a game. So
Duke lost with Zion Williamson and that team of superstars last year.
Yeah.
Here's
They were all
my
freshmen.
I don't know who's going to win it, but I've got 2 takes. I'll get you guys in here. I think Dayton can make the Final Four. They're number 5 in the country. Obi Toppin, he is unreal. I mean, I know they're in the A10, but if Loyola Chicago can make it, I just think
Dayton's
you can make
good
a case for anybody to make it. And I think Leonard Hamilton, here's my bold take for you on the podcast. Leonard Hamilton will win a national championship before his career's over.
Well,
I
how
think
old is
there
he?
will be
he's
one.
over 70.
He's over 70, you know that.
I do. I think there will be one year that if Florida State, with their height and they get some outside shooting, that Florida State wins a national championship. I don't think it's this year, but I think that somehow this whole reverse recruiting of while we get smaller in basketball and he keeps getting 7-footers,
Right.
and if
Understand.
Vassell keeps shooting, I mean, one day Florida State is going to win national.
It's like if,
Call me crazy, but that's my. That's
what
my
if
hot
a
take.
college football team went back to a power I formation one day to combat all these spread?
Right.
Because defenses are spreading out these days. But what if somebody lines up in an I formation and hits you in the mouth? How do you respond? You got to get a third linebacker on the field.
And
Take out that nickel
we're not
back.
talking triple option cut block stuff
Right.
like what Georgia Tech does. We're talking
about
old-school
Wisconsin.
Nebraska speed option.
Right.
You know,
And that's the thing. Like, if they can just get some outside shooting, like Vassell, who went off for 7 threes against Tech. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to win it this year, but they're 8th in the country. And I mean, how do you defend a team that's got so many 7-footers and so much length and can hit threes?
Historically, FSU under Hamilton, they always seem to get knocked out of the tournament every year by someone that shouldn't beat them.
because they can't play their best for 6 games in a row.
Right.
Yes.
I guess.
At their best, they're a formidable team.
Yeah,
They're very
they
good.
really, really are.
And unfortunately, when Buzz Williams had his best teams at Virginia Tech, Florida State always seemed to rise to the occasion against Virginia Tech. You know,
No doubt.
San Diego State's 26-0. Curious to see how they do. So I don't know. To answer that question, I don't know about you guys. I can't predict. I don't know who. I never buy Gonzaga. I always think they play in such a weak conference.
Yeah, I never buy Gonzaga.
I never buy Gonzaga.
I buy them as a very good team, but not at a legit national
yeah.
championship.
I'd love to be that program, but I don't think they're going to win a national championship.
No.
So,
Anyways,
Appreciate it.
we're right about an hour. Great questions. Kind of took us all over the map there, from different sports to different avenues.
Yep.
both Lester brothers got in.
Yes,
I don't know if you noticed that or not.
they did. All right, and we got your song lyric. We got that.
That's right.
So
And we got Unhinged teased. It is written. It's going to be posted later today.
awesome. And then you guys ready for the 9 o'clock tip tonight? Little caffeine, ready to go?
Sure.
If you're up
Chris
till
has
2:30,
got it worse than I do. But yeah, I stayed up till 2:30 the night before a 9 p.m. game.
Yeah, I've already oh God, what word am I looking for? Rescheduled my personal training for tomorrow morning, which is normally going to be at 7:30, but it's going to be at 7:30 on the day after a 9 o'clock game.
well, we will be back Monday morning, 9:30, to recap the weekend for Virginia Tech athletics. The Hokies have Miami, and then they have Duke on Saturday. We really didn't talk a ton about that, but the Hokies do go to Durham.
Yeah, that'd be nice to win, but
And so we'll be talking about that Monday at 9:30. Hope you can join us then for more Facebook Live questions. Will, any final thoughts you have before we sign off here?
No, that's it. Let's wrap it up and get to work.
All right, let's wrap it up again. Unhinged comes out today. TechSideline.com. Become a subscriber today to read this article. It will put a lot of time, energy. What were the words you used to describe it again? We'll close with that. What were the words you used to describe writing this?
Interesting. What was it? Interesting, compelling, disturbing, and personal.
There you have it. That's what's coming up today on the Tech Sideline Podcast. That'll do it for our fantastic team, the best producer in the land behind the scenes, Malcolm Stewart on the podcast set, Chris Coleman, Will Stewart, Evan Hughes saying so long. Thanks so much for watching. Hit the like and subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. This has been episode 119 of the Tech Sideline Podcast, brought to you by the Fisher Law Firm. Have a great week, everybody.